show. Patriots and the Texans. The Patriots lose. It's not. I don't think it's hyperbole to say that this is a devastating, potentially season-ending loss for the Patriots. Again, you absolutely could not lose, especially coming off the high of the big win last week against Baltimore. So there's a lot to break down with this game. But again, it's 27-20, 4-6 on the season. Before we get started, I just want to tell everybody at home, our sponsor here, Manscaped, 20% off, free shipping with the code PRESSPASS20 at manscaped.com. Once again, 20% off and free shipping with the code PRESSPASS20 at manscaped.com. And Evan, let's just get started. I think the obvious story here is the pass defense was shredded. Any pass rush and receivers were open. Corners were asked to cover for a long time. Well, obviously, Deshaun Watson was making ridiculous throws all game long. But this is I can't remember the last time Patriots secondary got picked apart like this.
Well, I think that really what we're seeing is that Deshaun Watson, in a lot of ways, is Bill Belichick's kryptonite. They have not been able to figure out how to defend Deshaun Watson properly. And any of the matchups that they have gone up against him, 2017 was a game where he ran around like a madman and was able to create a ton of plays, extended plays with his legs, and he had guys diving after him. It didn't work out. 2018, they had a little bit of a better performance against him, but then 2019, 2020, two huge games, back-to-back years for Deshaun Watson. They just can't seem to figure that guy out. They can't figure out how to defend him. Last year, they came after him. They blitzed him a ton. That didn't work. This year, they played coverage. That didn't work. I don't know what they need to do differently against Deshaun Watson, but clearly he has their number, and he's really, really good at attacking the middle of the field, moving guys with his eyes, influencing guys with his legs out of passing lanes. And, that's what we see time and time again. When they play Deshaun Watson, they have all sorts of trouble defending him.
Yeah, and that was, again, I know the tactic here, you're daring the Texans to run the ball, so you're putting three up front there, and you're dropping a ton of guys into coverage. Right. That created some rush lanes, but again, it's just the time that he had and the throws that he was making. Again, it was a lot to ask. There were some Pats were running in circles at a couple times too. I thought, Evan, there was some miscommunication. Some guys that were open probably shouldn't have been, but a lot of those were just beating Patriots corners. Again, part of the reason being that Watson had time to throw, and he was just, I think you tweeted it, he couldn't have walked the ball out there any better than some of the throws he was making, particularly in the first half, which were just, you couldn't wait to get to the halftime there with that. So that's where we are here. It's 4-6. Again, I don't know how much more there is to say about it. You're counting on your defense here. This felt like a game, again, Watson is their kryptonite, but it felt like a game where Texans can't really run the ball, so you know what they're going to do, and this plays to the Patriots' strength. Everything in this game played to the Patriots' strength. Both the fact that Patriots' strength of their defense is their pass defense, and you knew that the Texans were going to have to pass here to beat you, and their run defense is miserable. One of the worst in the league, and the Patriots, after that first drive, you're like, oh my goodness, they're going to run for 270 yards this game. And then it just went away. What happened there?
I have a feeling that Damian Harris, he's been injured. He's been on the injury report for a couple of weeks now. He had the chest, and then he had an ankle injury as well. That's the only explanation I can come up with against this bet, other than the score, right? Just getting too far behind to throw the football at times. But really, until the fourth quarter, only carrying the ball 11 times and really only doing it on, I have to go back and watch it and actually chart it, but it felt like every other run was one of those crack toss plays, which went absolutely nowhere after the Texans sort of got a beat on what exactly they were doing. The opening drive, they go right down the field. They use the crack toss to get in. Damian Harris walks into the end zone from 9 yards untouched. From that point on, the Texans, really their defensive backs, their outside corners, were triggering downhill on those lead blockers.
And there was nowhere to go.
And there was nowhere to go. They figured that out. The Patriots didn't really want to figure out an inside running game and get going that way. And that's it. They threw the ball really well. The Patriots did, especially for the fact that everybody thinks their receivers stink. They actually threw the ball with great efficiency in this game. But the problem really was picking up the blitz in key situations was a head scratcher that they just couldn't figure out. They did a much better job of that against the Jets and against the Ravens. So I was surprised to see how much they struggled with it, but the Texans had a bunch of free runners to the quarterback off of blitzes. Cam didn't really know where his answers were to get the ball out quickly. He did check into a few screenplays, and I know it drives people crazy, but when they're running, blitzing 6 guys at the quarterback, there's really not that much time to do anything besides throw a screen or throw a dump off in the flat or just get the ball out of the quarterback's hands. So I thought he checked into a couple of different good screens, but I don't know if it's a disconnect between the protection and how he's setting the front, how he's looking at the pre-snap read of the front and not adjusting the protection based off of that. If it's the receivers not understanding that they're hot, that they need to get open quickly because it's a blitz. If it's the O-line not picking guys up, it's probably an issue of all of those things. But today it was one of the worst performances we've seen out of the Patriots against the blitz all year.
And it was, and that was, you force Newton into situations that he doesn't want to be in there. He was obviously, he had a lot of low throws when the pressure was coming. His feet weren't set. There were a couple times, again, it's hard to say not recognize the blitz, but they immediately put them, obviously that sack where he took it, put them into a 2nd and 17 late there in the 4th. Those are Patriots can't really, when you're getting Pats into 2nd and long, 3rd and long, they're obviously going to struggle in those situations. And it forced a lot of incompletions there and took them out of their game. But otherwise, yeah, it was a fairly, they had to throw it, whether it was Harris' injury or whether the Texans just knew what was coming and they forced the Patriots into this. It became a Cam Newton game, and he was actually had, I thought, a pretty good game. He did have a few of those low throws, but he got the ball downfield. That play to Bird is the most explosive play that they've had all season long there. His first touchdown to a receiver all season, which is crazy. Bird had his Jacoby Myers game today, and he was fantastic. Even Harry, absolutely invisible for the first 2.5, 3 quarters, then Cam started looking his way. So he was spreading the ball around a bit, and it just fell short.
Yeah, it really is what it is, and it just fell short is what I mean. And I feel like in a lot of ways, as I was watching this game unfold, I was like, this feels a lot like some of their close losses this year, where the situational execution and play calling just isn't good enough to get them over the hump, right? They're competitive, they're in the game, they're within 1 score, but just the 4th down play call or the 3rd down play call or execution of those plays and just these little things here and there. The Texans on the drive before the Patriots got the ball there at the end, they picked up a few first downs to run some clock that were key. Defending the middle of the field was a big problem for the Patriots defense. I just feel like this is how this team loses, right? They're right there. They have the ball in their hands with a chance to make a play late in the game. They punch the ball in to either tie it or win the football game. And the last 2 weeks, they've been able to make those plays. But on the whole this year, they haven't been able to make those plays. And basically, outside of the Niners game, that's where 5 of their 6 losses came from. None of these losses were big-time blowouts. These are very close games. It's situational football. Got to know that's got to drive Bill Belichick crazy, that he can't get his team to lock down, 4th quarter, end of game type of situations, and they can't be tighter.
It's crazy. You're looking at right now the game in Cam Newton's hands with a chance to win or tie in Seattle, Denver, Buffalo, Jets, which ended up turning out well, and this game. That's you're 1-4 in those games. Okay. That's not what you expect. Again, we talk about Patriots like football. I don't know what Patriots football is anymore, because part of Patriots football had very much to do with the fact that Tom Brady was the quarterback in those situations. And so you would expect that he was going to pull that one out almost every single time. But you're right. Also, the game management, getting off the field on 3rd down, a lot of things that, this team isn't able to do, where you're putting yourself a 0 margin for error sort of situation like they were in today. You get the ball back with 4 minutes left. You've got to basically drive the field and score. And that was clearly what they were trying to do. And so they were trying to whittle it down to 0 and play for OT here. Now, the one thing I'm going to nitpick here is I understand the philosophy, Evan, not wanting to give the ball back to Deshaun Watson with too much time. But beggars can't be choosers here. You had to find a way to score. I thought they were way too slow. And again, I'm not going to say the announcers were picking up on it, but it was surprising, to huddle up and to take it down. And then just that. I think the one thing you had to make sure you didn't do was burn a timeout there. And they did. I think on a second down run by James White, where there was about 1:18 or so left on the clock, and they called the timeout. That was terrible. That to me, I mean, that's not a game, but that I don't understand that at all. They're burning a timeout. You needed your three timeouts in case you couldn't convert there, and they gave no chance. Not that you punt the ball back with a minute and no timeouts. There's no guarantee there, but they eliminated any possibility, put it all on that drive. And then, as you said earlier, the pressure, whatever it was that they were doing, Cam Newton, there's nothing he can do about that final play of the game. He avoided 7 sacks before he finally, had to throw it away. But that was it. Again, zero margin for error here.
Yeah, it was, the last play of the game, I watched it back a couple of times, and you just see the Texans are showing blitz up the middle, and they actually drop the guys off the middle and bring the safety off the edge. And the running back is James White, and blitz pickup. He goes to step up into the middle of the line to try to stop the linebackers from blitzing up the middle, and the guy comes off the edge unblocked. So the one thing that you have to know if you're Cam Newton, and it's not to blame Cam because it was a good design of the play and a good execution by Houston late in the game there. But the one thing that you got to know if you're Cam is you got to know where your protection is, right? So you have to understand, okay, James White is peeking inside. He's going to protect inside out, right? He's going to look for the blitzers up the middle first, and then he's going to go ahead and find the guys on the outside. With knowing that, you got to get rid of the football, right. And whether that because when that safety comes off the edge, whether he sees him or not, you understand that the linebackers in the middle are dropping off the line of scrimmage. So in all likelihood, the blitz is coming from the edge, and if you know that, then you know that the ball needs to come out because that guy's unblocked. There's nobody there to take him, right? He's unblocked blitzer, and as the quarterback, that's when you need to know that you're hot in that situation. So my question really is it Cam? Is it the receivers? Is it the protection that's not getting set properly? But clearly that was an issue. I thought on the defensive side of the ball, honestly, they only gave up 6 points in the second half.
No, right.
They did find a way to mitigate Deshaun Watson in the second half.
It was all in the first half, Evan. Yeah. I agree. That was where they were running in circles and they couldn't figure out what was going on, and Watson was just hitting people. They did a much better job in the second half.
Yeah, and they felt I understand that it's nauseating for people to watch them not get any pressure on the quarterback, but this was the old style trash compactor mush rush game, right? That's exactly what they did out there. They just continuously just tried to collapse the pocket on Deshaun Watson and drop 7, 8 guys into coverage, right? And it's a nauseating game plan to watch, but when you have good execution on the back end, like they did for a good part of the second half, I thought, then you do hold them out of the end zone that way. And you might get into some bend and don't break type of situations, but then you do find a way to get them out. And I just want to say one thing about Josh McDaniels. I see a lot of people on Twitter, a lot of people in the comments constantly getting on McDaniels for things. His play calling is poor, this, that, the other thing. In their 2 victories over the Jets and the Ravens recently, it was the same offense, guys. So he can't be a genius when it works against Baltimore and then be a squid when it doesn't work against Houston, right? They're running the same offense. They're running the same stuff. They're crack tossing to the running backs. They're running different types of kind of flood the underneath zones, get the ball out of Cam's hands, and let him get the ball out into the middle of the field, or let him get it into guys that can pick up yards after the catch, like the running backs, like James White. And everybody wants to pick on, 2nd and 19, and you run it. Okay, what's the play call that you would like him to call on 2nd and 19? It's 2nd and forever, and you have a passing offense that's really not that good, and you don't want to turn the football over there. You don't want to create another negative play. My whole point with the play calling and with the coaching decisions in terms of that is 1 week it looks like they're geniuses because the team goes out there and executes it at a high level. The next week they look like they're idiots because the team doesn't execute it at a high level. And that's really what it comes down to. The player execution on the field often makes coaches look really bad or really good. And I didn't really think McDaniels' play calling was all that bad today. It's just sometimes if you find yourself into situations where fans go nuts about these types of things, I understand it, but I don't know how you can continuously blame Josh McDaniels for something that really he put the players out there that he has in a position to succeed, and they just got outplayed by the other team.
When there's problems on offense, Evan, you're either going to blame Josh McDaniels or Bill Belichick's drafting. Those are the rules.
Or Cam Newton. Those are
Cam Newton, or sometimes N'Keal Harry.
Right.
Those are the four options. Okay. So you're going to blame that, and so this was one of those where it seemed like when you're working, you're going to say what's McDaniels doing. It was game plan. It just didn't work. And again, I don't know. The thing you mentioned with Harris, I'm not sure. It did look like he had a ton of bounce early in the game, and then it just wasn't there. But there were also a ton of, as you said, the DBs were coming downhill. There was a ton of defenders in his face there. One very bad thing that happened, and again, it might not matter considering likely this team isn't going to be headed to the playoffs after this loss, but Rex Burkhead just got wiped out and creamed. It looked like a really bad injury, hit directly to the knee or lower leg area. We don't want to speculate, but he was in a ton of pain, and everybody was praying and look, I mean, it looked bad. So I think that's it for Rex, who's been one of their most consistent, if not the most consistent offensive player all year for this team. You have to assume that he's out. And if Harris is down, now you've got Michelle theoretically available off the IR. It could be some Sony time again. So I don't, we'll see there. Also on the running back front, James White, that screen, that's the first time we've seen a play like that all year. That 40-yard gain, seems like we've been waiting for that big one there. We'd get, several of those every season from White. Wasn't a ton of it there, but White was involved in the offense a little bit today. But just the thoughts here on Rex and just kind of what a bummer that was.
Well, I think despite Damon Harris's breakout, Damon Harris is the most dynamic ball carrier the Patriots have. That's not a question, but Rex is still the most versatile one that they have, and still the guy that they can both run and pass with when he's on the football field. Whereas with Damon Harris or with James White, it's very predictable which way it's going to be. I feel like, though, ultimately they can probably get over not having a Rex Burkhead. He's a great guy in the locker room. Everybody loves the guy. You could tell by the reactions of his teammates how much he means to them and how much he means to them as a veteran leader in there. But I don't think that this is as massive a loss in terms of I don't think it's going to move the needle one way or another drastically, but it is a tough one to see just happen in general. I think the bigger injury is probably what happened late with Isaiah Wynn going down at left tackle, getting rolled up on. If you're a Patriot fan that still wants this team to compete down the stretch and try to fight every tooth and nail every last minute for the postseason, Wynn going down at left tackle, I think it could be a massive, massive hit and all of that. But I think the biggest thing that you have to look at, though, first half definitely was Deshaun Watson in defending the middle of the field. They still haven't really been able to figure that out. They're one of the worst defenses in the league of defending between the numbers, because the second level of their defense is either inexperienced or unathletic, right? You have guys like Kyle Duggar and Terez Hall dropping into those underneath zones who are good, fast players, better athletes than some of the other guys that they could put in that position, but they're really susceptible to getting pulled out of lanes by the quarterback's eyes, right? And Deshaun Watson can kind of stare down the left side, move Kyle Duggar just enough, and then come back to the throw the other way. And there's just enough space created there by sort of eye manipulation and the flow of the play and where the quarterback's first read is. And they haven't been able to really get into a comfortable level with the middle of the field. Juwan Bentley is obviously on the other side of the coin. He's just too slow to defend the middle of the field. And then you put Duggar out there, you put a Terez Hall out there, and those guys are just young players that are easily manipulated by a good quarterback, by Deshaun Watson. So ultimately, you just see all of these things, and it's just difficult to kind of find a group or a mix that's been able to defend the middle. The Ravens and Lamar Jackson, that's the only thing they did well offensively last week against the Patriots, was throwing the ball between the numbers at that second level of the defense. It's been a major problem for the Patriots all year. It continues to be a major problem. And these are kind of two themes of like blitzing the quarterback and making sure that the Patriots running game doesn't get going by putting 8 guys into the box and run blitzing and being aggressive against their offensive line. And then on the other hand, just not being able to defend the middle of the field. So pressure on offense, not being able to cover between the numbers on defense. Those right now are kind of the Achilles heels of the Patriots.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, just talking about the middle of the field, Patriots lead the league in tight ends who you've never heard of and are on nobody's fantasy team, just eating them up. I mean, and it's amazing, just doubly frustrating when you consider how little production the Patriots have gotten themselves from the tight end position, and every single team that they play, their second string and third string tight ends are just eating chunks of yards over the middle of the field. In addition to that, Gilmore, first game back. Some talk about behind the scenes there with his knee injury. By all accounts, he was hurt. There's some vibe around the team, and there's certainly been people saying that he may be making business decisions right now. And a la Rob Gronkowski, I play when I'm 100%, and understandable. This is a thing that happens in the National Football League. Not going to speculate on what's going on there, but he got eaten up a couple times by Cooks. And again, I'm not sure what the coverages were on all of those plays, but your just thoughts on his return and his situation right now.
I thought he played fine. I mean, honestly, you insert against the run like that to stop that outside run that he had, and you make that tackle at the line of scrimmage. That's not a guy that's checked out, right? Normally with corners, if you want to talk about a guy that's checked out or he's not fully invested mentally or physically in the team right now because of his situation moving forward, he's not going out there and trying to thump heads against a running back coming at him on a little toss play or outside zone type of run. I didn't really see anything major. Cook's a decent player. I mean, he's going to get some opportunities. He's going to make some plays. I really didn't think the outside corners, J.C. Jackson, Gilmore, I don't think this was on them. This was 100% on the middle of the field defense, and then probably a little bit on the game plan, too, of just not really being able to figure out the best mix to go after Deshaun Watson. Do we blitz him? Do we only rush 3 or 4 guys? Where's sort of that balance, and where can we sort of figure out a way to stop him? I'm interested to see the second half, though. Just looking at their drives in the second half, the Texans, the Patriots did go punt, field goal, and then obviously the punt at the end. So they did give up an 11-play drive and an 8-play drive in the second half, but they were able to lock down and keep them out of the end zone.
Yeah.
So it was better in the second half. It's such a conundrum with Deshaun Watson, though. He's such a good player that when you blitz him like you did last year, he shreds you by beating you down the field. And then when you don't blitz him and you kind of play coverage, he just sort of moves zones and moves guys' eyes and attacks leverage down the field and is able to beat you that way. So what do you do?
What you do at this point, Evan, is you do something the Patriots fans aren't super accustomed to at this point, which is play out the string, which is what it appears that this team is going to have to do. It was already a long shot to reach the playoffs, considering how many teams ahead of them have 2 and 3 more wins or 2 and 3 fewer losses. And now, again, at 4 and 6 here, this is an extremely difficult situation the Patriots are in. We had this conversation a couple of weeks ago before they rattled off the 2 wins with the Jets and the Ravens about playing for the future. But again, how are you playing it here down the stretch with these last 6 games? Do you even bother bringing Julian Edelman back at this point? Or do you see if you just rest him and see if he can come back healthy next season? Anybody even remotely ding up like a Damian Harris? Do you just not bother, using them as well? I mean, you don't want to at this point suffer any injuries or do anything to yourself that's going to affect next season. Also, you want to see kids come out and play a little bit. So, what are we doing here for the Patriots, and what do fans want to see? I'm curious in the chats here as well. I mean,
I know what the fans want to see. The fans want to see Trevor Lawrence in the Patriots uniform, right? They want to see the Patriots tank. It's not going to happen. I promise you it's not going to happen. Maybe in like week 16 or 17 when it's truly over and they're mathematically eliminated from the playoffs and there's no way that they're going to go on a run. I think at that point we might be able to see a Jared Stidham out there. We might be able to see, sort of a tank, right? It's not going to happen right now. They only have 6 losses, guys, and there's 7 teams that make the playoffs this year. I think people forget that, right? This is not a 6-team playoff field. This is a 7-team playoff field. You can make the playoffs at 8-8 or 9-7 this year. It's possible. There is a path. And I'm telling you right now that Bill Belichick is not going to give up on the year. Call it ego, call it whatever you want, competitive nature, call it stupid. You can call it stupid too and say, this is ridiculous. They're going to end up finishing 7-9. And then where are we? I get that completely, but it's definitely not going to be a full tank mode. They're just not going to do it. So
they're not going to do it. They're not going to tank. They're not going to tank.
No.
They're going to play games with whatever they have out there, and whoever's on the field, they're going to play those games to win. Question is who they're playing and who they're using, and whether they start to view this in a developmental sort of way, which is, again, we've talked about Belichick having this affinity for his veterans because he can trust them and he knows that they're going to make plays, and whether it's just roll them out there. And again, he's already doing it to an extent. You had Anthony Jennings playing some today. I mean, he was in the
played, Duggar's played.
Duggar's playing a ton, and you're living.
They're playing the kids.
You're living with Duggar. Duggar's filling. Duggar's coming downhill, and he's playing great as kind of that big nickel safety there in run support. And he's running around all over the place a little bit in coverage because, again, he's still figuring that part of the game out. So you're getting a mixed bag with him. Winovich, again, early on, he had some good plays got a little bit of pressure, what little they got, forced a holding penalty. Jennings was out there. They're playing the kids.
They've been playing the kids for a couple of weeks now. This is not a situation where veteran players are playing over the young rookies. They've really played Kyle Duggar. They've played Anthony Jennings. They've played Josh Uche. They've played, go right down the line, Damian Harris, Jacoby Myers has played. They're playing the young guys. The issue really for the Patriots right now is that until you tell Bill that they are mathematically eliminated from the playoffs and you're not going to make the dance this year, they're going to keep trying to compete and win football games. There's no doubt about it. And I know everybody thinks it's crazy, and after watching them lose a game like this to Houston, where you felt like there was some momentum finally, right, where you have 2 wins in a row, you beat a really good team in Baltimore, you thought maybe you could string some wins together and go on a little bit of a run. Now you're kind of in a different spot, but at the end of the day, they could still go 10-6 and make the postseason. They could still go 9-7 and make the postseason. So what's the point? I don't necessarily agree with everybody that wants to tank. I don't like it as a philosophy from an organizational perspective. I just think it's such a losing mentality. And I don't really think that if you look over the course of NFL history, outside of Indianapolis, where it's sort of worked, I guess, because they knew Andrew Luck was coming out of the draft and they knew they were going to get him, the tanking strategy really has not worked.
Here's the best case scenario, and I'm gonna this comment that's on the screen right now. I get it. You're right. What's the point of having wins and getting stuck in that middle of the pack? At the end of the day, it's not where you want to be moving forward, because you want to have higher draft picks, more assets, whatever that is. Of course you do, but the Patriots are never going to allow that kind of losing culture in here. They're never going to tank in that sense of the word, which would go out there and clearly in an embarrassing way try to not win a game. It just as a window into one, they got too many veterans. The whole Patriots way doesn't work if you do that, okay? And you have veterans who are still buying in, trying to get the younger players that you ultimately want to see take bigger roles in the future to buy in as well. You do that and you turn this into Loserville, forget about it, okay? That doesn't work under Belichick. It doesn't work that way. And for anybody to have a window into Belichick's mind, forget seasons, look game by game. This guy will not take his starters out of a game until the other team takes their starters out of a game, which is why Tom Brady still used in the past would be in up 4 touchdowns with 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter. He will not do it. If you're playing, I'm playing. So if the other team on the other side of the ball is trying to win the game, Bill Belichick is going to try to win that game. There is no tanking here. There's a and again, I think some people are conflating tanking with playing kids, and that's the thing. Right. You can play kids and not tank per se, but you live with the wins if they come. And right now, they are playing some kids. The only one that's not playing is Stidham. And I think part of the worry is if they put Stidham out there and he's an absolute dumpster fire, it is tantamount to giving up on everybody and everyone around you. And that's
what do you do? Stidham is not the answer.
And Stidham probably they don't believe in him. That's the sad.
They don't believe in him, and it doesn't give you a proper evaluation of the rest of the team. How are you supposed to figure out, okay, do we really have something here in Jacoby Myers, or was this just kind of a flash in the pan? Is N'Keal Harry ever going to develop into the guy that we think he's going to develop into? What about the young guys on the offensive line, right? What are you going to do then? I'm telling you, it's just not the answer to go to Stidham. Cam has been playing fine. I really don't understand the criticisms. Really, the only thing that I can get on Cam for, and I don't even know if it's necessarily his fault, is the blitz pickup. Right? Is just they're not doing a good job of checking out of bad plays and also making sure you get the blitz blocked.
How many plays are over before they begin? Just
right.
a couple of really bad ones.
A little bit on the quarterback. It has to be. Either we don't know the play calls, we don't know the process, whether it's David Andrews.
You got to recognize.
Right
into his face, and Cam almost surprised, doesn't see it. Like only picking it up happening in real time to have no wherewithal of. Again, this is where the Brady wiggle and the Brady. There were times where Brady's not only knowing that blitz is coming, knowing that when that guy comes, I'm going to sit here for a second, then I'm just going to slide here and I'll be okay. He's going to run right by me. He's factoring that into his thinking. Cam is immediately in a holy shit mode when that's coming his way, or he doesn't see it at all. And that's been a big problem for sure. Recognition.
Right. But I think for the most part, his playmaking as a quarterback and his throw making down the field today was actually pretty solid. He just can't really figure out how to handle the blitz, how to set the protection properly. Most of it, I would say 90% of his issues right now are pre-snap. They're before the snap issues where you see a safety kind of creeping down and like he's going to blitz on the edge, then maybe you start to think, okay, I need to at least look at that safety and look that direction, because if he does come off, then I know that I'm hot, because the running back and blitz pickup is taking the middle inside out type of read, right? Yeah. He's making a two-way read. He's reading it inside out. So he's going to be late to picking up that edge guy. So I better know that he's coming and know that I have to get rid of the football. And the way that I look at it when he gets the ball in those situations, like that fourth down play, he doesn't even seem to really sense that the blitz is coming right away, right? It's kind of more of like now the guy's right on top of me, I better make a miss, right? It's not the same sort of feel. So that's the only thing I can get on Cam for. If you want to get on him for the fact that he can't really, some of the throws are low or some of the plays are not the best, and that's just Cam Newton. He's not a consistent down-to-down thrower.
I'm going to get on him for a different reason, Evan. I'm going to get on him because with Cam Newton and this offense, you have to play it so simple and vanilla that you're really, really, really capping your ceiling here. You can, and again, this goes back to the McDaniels coming up with stuff. I mean, they are running a limited playbook here with Cam Newton. Okay. This is a basic offense with a trick play or two thrown in there, and that's it. Okay. So that's what you got. That's my knock on Newton is, whether it's just his style. That's what he's a get out there, figure it out, be Cam Newton, make it happen sort of quarterback. And it really, really, really limits the amount of things you can do. In addition to, obviously, he hasn't had the greatest set of playmakers around him who can bail him out all the time. So he's got to do a lot of it on his own. But the offense has to be so boring and vanilla that I think, again, you can only do so much with it. And I think that's the tough part with Newton. Again, that's everybody's concern here. And again, I'm looking at the chat, but I mean, you and I talk to a ton of people. We know the Patriots have never been in this situation before. You've never been in a place where you have uncertainty at the position that not only matters most in football, the number one position in all of sports. Okay. you need the quarterback to be consistent, to have a shot at winning. And right now, not having one is freaking people out.
Yeah, I can sort of get that. I mean, look, I kind of look at it similar to, I'm sure, how the team looks at it. We're in season right now, right? We can worry about the Zach Wilsons and Mac Jones.
But that's where the Stidham calls come from. It's not because they think it's Stidham. I think people want to just either see it and rule it out and then know, okay, I can appropriately freak out that we got to draft somebody next year, more so than it is any faith in Stidham or not liking Cam. But you can see it and say, this can't be the future. So what is? That's the thing. You just want to know.
I think Cam is, in a way, the future, because I believe he will be here next year in some capacity. Now, do I think that he's the future in terms of the next, looking at the next 5 to 10 years? Obviously not. But I think that what it ends up going to be is probably Cam as a bridge quarterback to the next guy, right? So the player that I really think that is going to get upgraded in the offseason is not Cam Newton. I think it's Jarrett Stidham. I think the Patriots are going to go out there and they're going to draft a quarterback to be the franchise moving forward and be the young guy behind Cam Newton for another year, and then probably usher in that next era after a bridge year with Cam. I think it's Stidham that they're more disappointed in, honestly, from this year than Cam.
Yeah.
His compete level, his ability to kind of, take this job from Cam, who has certainly looked sloppy and not perfect at times this year. The door could have been open at times, right, for Jarrett Stidham to sort of take this job by the horns. Back in training camp, in the beginning of camp, it wasn't like Cam Newton came out there and was playing like 2015 Cam Newton. That wasn't the case. Then after COVID, he played poorly, right? So at one point in time, there was an opportunity for Jarrett Stidham, multiple points in time, I should say. Stop putting Julian D on the screen. This guy's commenting like 500 times. Julian, get out of here. All right. Cam, at one point in time,
Julian's here every single show, every single week.
Yeah, that's why I say it with love. I say it with love.
He deserves to be heard. Yeah. Anyway, keep going.
There was multiple points in time this season where Jarrett Stidham had an opportunity for sure to take the starting job from Cam Newton back in the summer. And I think back in the summer, the team, from what I understand, actually wanted Jarrett Stidham to win that job, right? They wanted to see a fiery Stidham. They wanted to see a guy that wanted that job and went out there and fought away from Cam Newton. But they ended up kind of falling into the Cam thing because Jarrett Stidham really didn't do that. And then at this point of the season, Belichick keeps saying Cam's a starter, Cam's a starter, Cam's a starter, because Stidham never did that behind the scenes. So ultimately, I think that Cam is probably the short-term answer, with then hopefully getting somebody in here that has some talent that's a little bit better than Jarrett Stidham to usher in that next era after another bridge year. But today, to me, yes, the pre-snap stuff with Cam I thought was a big problem. I understand that it's ugly to watch him like dirt balls into the ground on those outside throws and stuff, but ultimately you have to kind of live with those with a guy like Cam Newton, because he's not Tom Brady. He's not Breeze. He's not going to be every single throw out of the hand perfect, right? With smooth mechanics and all that kind of stuff.
We can't keep running this off. They
have switched into the offense. They've got a lot more 2 wide receiver heavy. They've put him under center more. They've tried to move the pocket a little bit more and run play action like pretty much half the time over the last month or so.
I'm still surprised his reluctance to run, Evan. I don't understand it sometimes. That's what's strange. I don't know if that's a Cam decision or the Patriots saying stay there, but I mean, to me, he should be every single, because he is who he is, which is not a guy who's going to go through 7 progressions and then sit there for a while and then figure it out. To me, the philosophy would be, if your first read isn't open and there's a teeny bit of space, go. Every time, okay, and that keeps the defense honest there. I'm amazed how many games we go deep into the game and Newton hasn't busted 1 15 or 20-yard run. I don't understand. I don't know if he's being told not to do that, or he's trying so hard to do it the Patriots way or the way that they want that he himself is just sitting there looking around like crazy trying to figure stuff out instead of just doing what comes natural.
Yeah, I do think that there is some element. Well, first of all, the quarterback run elements outside of the goal line, basically, right? And outside of situational calls on 3rd and short or goal line plays or whatever, that has basically gone away because teams are just ready for it now and better prepared for it. And the Patriots haven't really had the practice time to go what I would call kind of like full Baltimore, right? And get really exotic with those types of schemes with motion and different types of option plays and things like that. They haven't been able to drill those enough, I don't think, to get to that iteration of the offense. And I think in terms of Cam scrambling, I do think that they're trying to get him through a progression. I do think they're trying to get him, 1-2 check down at least, not just 1 and take off or 1 and check down, but at least get to 1 and 2 and then to the check down. And I think that sometimes you see the processing issues come into play, but it's mostly the timing issues. JJ Watt had 4 swats today, 4 batted passes at the line of scrimmage. A lot of that is just because he realizes the ball's coming out, right? He knows that the ball is coming out in a certain sort of time frame there, and he's able to just, okay, I'm not going to get home with my rush, but if I just get my big hands up, it's not going to matter.
And Onwenu kept him at bay all game. He realized he wasn't going to get to Cam, so he just sat back and batted him down.
Right, and that's sort of most of the time when you talk about batted passes, a lot of people make it about height, quarterback height. Obviously, Cam's 6'5", so it's not about a height issue with him. It's about arm angle or release point, and then timing of the play. Where if those defensive linemen kind of get a beat on when the ball is going to come out, you can get your hands up quicker and figure out where to get your hands into passing lanes. But I think ultimately, on the defensive side of the ball, we talk a lot about Cam. Certainly that's where the game was sort of lost towards the end of the game. But defensively, time and time again, defending the middle of the field just killed them in this game. They just couldn't get off the field in those types of situations. They ended up holding them to 5 for 11 on third down. I wouldn't say it was really a third down issue. It was more of an early down passing issue where the Texans really shredded them. Success rate of 58% on first and second down is way too high if you're going to be a defense that's going to have any sort of impact on the game. So ultimately, there was a lot of situations too where you're looking at the defense and you say, okay, you're playing an 8-man coverage. You got a guy that's in outside leverage. Where's his help to the middle of the field? A lot of those throws to the tight ends, Kyle Duggar, Juwan Williams, they're coming across the field with the tight ends. They're sitting on the outside hip, expecting the safety in the middle of the field to cut off the tight end coming across the field, and that help just never comes. And that's where you sort of get into issues. And then the other issues are obviously zone dropping. You got guys like Duggar, you got Terez Hall, younger players dropping into the middle of the field that aren't used to kind of figuring out those zones, and they're getting lost a little bit. And ultimately, when you play zone coverage, it's really key to think about. You have to not only get to your spot. Yes, you are spot dropping to a location on the field, but it's also important to know the route combination and see where the receivers are on the field. You can't just turn your back and run to the spot and be like, okay, I'm covering my grass, right? You can't just cover grass. You have to cover a receiver too. And sometimes I think these guys are so focused on keeping their structure, the general structure of the cover 3 zone or a cover 2 zone intact, that they're losing where the receivers are actually running, and they're covering grass instead of covering actual bodies out there.
All right. So again, the conversation everyone seems to be having here is looking ahead to next season and what's going on. I do want to again point out, because a couple people have mentioned on the thread here, here's another reason why you don't necessarily, I mean, again, whatever we're calling tanking, I'm not super concerned with it, but you have to recognize that the Patriots, anybody who's gloom and doom right now because it's not used to what you're seeing, you're talking about a team with an insane amount of cap space coming back next year, and certainly higher draft pick. What's a tanky top 10 draft pick or somewhere in the middle? It's still a lot better than where you're picking the 20s and 30s. Normally, or late 20s, and picks that you're used to seeing them kick into the second round. So you're looking at a decent draft pick, a lot of cap room. Donta Hightower returning, possibly some other guys as well. We don't know what's going to happen with the Gilmore situation. So it's not as bad as it all seems in terms of, again, Brady Belichick at the height of their powers level. No, that's not going to be what they're going to be next year. But they're not a back of the pack team, heading into next year, no matter how bad the rest of this season goes, based on a lot of things that are kind of working in their favor. And again, you talk about that draft pick, even if they finish where they're finishing now, somewhere in the back half, picking 12, 13, 14, 15, that's the difference between getting one of the top players, blue chip pedigree studs in the draft that you don't trade back for, and having a pick that you kind of view. How many times, Evan, do they get to about 25 in the draft and they're like, next 20 guys are all the same,
Yeah, I think that was a situation they ran into
this year. Yeah. And they find themselves feeling that way a lot. And if they can move back, they do. And when they don't, they take like a Raleigh Down. I mean, again, going way back in the Wayback Machine, but you take a guy who's there, best available or fits your need, that isn't necessarily a value pick at that round. So again, all of these things are positive going forward. We'll see what they do with it. Anything you want to do here before putting a bow on this one, Evan?
I find it a real shock that we come out of these games where the defense looked as poorly as it did,
And it's all about Cam. Yeah.
where Cam looked a little bit comfortable. Honestly, almost he threw for over 300 yards. And we're talking about Cam Newton, and we're talking about the quarterback position, and that's what's wrong with this Patriot team. And I couldn't disagree more. I honestly couldn't disagree more. I don't think it has anything to do with the quarterback. I nitpicked a few things that I thought Cam definitely could have done better. Pre-snap reading of blitzes is a common issue that they continuously have that Cam needs to get better at if they're going to have any sort of chance to string some wins together. But ultimately, I don't think that this is on the QB. This is on the fact that really offensively, they're super limited both by chemistry and just sort of time together. And then also in terms of what they have on the outside being what it is. And then defensively covering the middle of the field, finding a way to generate pass rush when it's not a situation where you can blitz the quarterback and tee off or run a lot of line games and stunts. That's a big part of the Patriots pass rush, right? Is stunts and line games and blitzes and things like that. If you can't do that because you're playing into Deshaun Watson, you start stunting the defensive line when you're playing Watson and you blow the edge. There you go. There's that escape lane, right? And a couple of times, Chase Winovich and a couple of other players I thought were pretty undisciplined with their rush lanes, and he got out of the pocket and was able to extend the play. Today's game plan, unlike last week they really came after Lamar Jackson. This week was play coverage, keep Deshaun in the pocket, make him beat you by throwing the football, and he did. And so you have to tip the cap. That was the game plan, and Deshaun Watson executed his game plan better than your guys executed their game plan, and that's why they lost the game. And time again, I keep saying that the defense is the bigger issue than the offense, and today felt like one of those days.
Yeah. For the Celtics fans out there, Jason Tatum signs his Supermax extension. A couple people threw it in the threads here, but if we're going to end on some positive news, Jason Tatum's here for another 5 years, so that's probably a good thing. That's going to get him up to $200 million. Lots of Celtics stuff going on these days for anyone who wants to catch us on our other channels there. But for this stuff, this Patriots channel, make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. If you're on the stream, every time we go live for a post-game situation or during the week, you will get notifications. Also, just want to tell you once again about our sponsor, Manscaped. Go to manscaped.com, enter the code PRESSPASS20, get 20% off your order, plus free shipping. Again, use the code PRESSPASS20 at manscaped.com, 20% off and free shipping. Follow Evan Lazar, CLNSmedia.com. We're going to jump in, see what the Patriots are saying here in their post game. Evan he's going to write his 10 things he learned from today's game, much of which we discussed here, but he's going to take a closer look at some of the film. That'll be out on clnsmedia.com later on today. And again, we'll have more stuff and more videos coming out on the YouTube channel, breaking down this game a little bit later on as well. So Evan, again, I think we'll wrap it for everybody at home. I mean, you know what happened. They lose. Patriots lose 27-20, fall to 4-6 on the season. Feels like this could be it for the Pats for this year, for any hopes of making the playoffs, which were already a bit long, but we'll see what happens after that. We've got Arizona next week. Arizona,
another quarterback that can move in the pocket and straight on the field. So it's going to be interesting to see. As amazing as Lamar Jackson was last year, I don't think I've ever seen a human being move as fast as Kyler Murray does on a football field. Did you hear what Bill said about Lamar pregame? Scott Zolak asked Bill, does it help you at all that you're going to face Deshaun Watson this week after coming off a week facing Lamar Jackson? And Bill said, well, Deshaun Watson's a complete quarterback, right? Ooh. This is not just a runner. Right. This is a guy that can throw the ball, and Kyler is similar, right? That Kyler, he's not just a scrambler. He's really good in scramble.
He slings it.
But he's got a hose and he knows how to use it. So that's a double combination there, similar to Deshaun Watson, where you can stand in the pocket and you can force him to stand in the pocket and beat you, and he will.
There's a little Mahomes in Murray's game too, in terms of his creativity with the passes that he throws and the daring that he's willing to show on the field there. He can absolutely sling it. And again, he is just an absolute rocket ship. So it'll be at least entertaining to watch. Again, major talent coming into Foxborough. Evan will be there covering the game live. We will catch up with you guys, throughout the week, previewing that matchup, putting a bow on this one as we kind of watch the film and learn a little bit more. Thanks for watching.